I know a lot of people noted that Rooney Mara and Cate Blanchett were in this and got excited about the Carol reunion. And rightly so, Carol's a great film. But I gotta say, I got a lot more excited about seeing Richard Jenkins and Mary Steenburgen in this. Step Brothers reunion, baby!
If you displease the right people, the world closes in on you very, very fast.
Nightmare Alley. Now, I know I said I was aiming to mostly review 2022 releases and keep this stuff for my best of the year list, but spoilers alert, I'm a big fan of Nightmare Alley, and it's still playing in theaters most places, and not enough people are seeing it, so I'm going to review it if it at least gets one person to go and watch Nightmare Alley, because it's very good. I'm a fan of it, if you couldn't tell. Nightmare Alley is the latest film from Guillermo del Toro, who, look, he's one of my favorite filmmakers, and if you've been watching this channel for the last few years, and if you have, thank you. Like, seriously, I love you. Thank you. But you'd know that Shape of Water was my favorite film of 2017. I'm a huge fan of him as a filmmaker. Pan's Labyrinth is an absolute masterpiece. I think one of the greatest films ever made. And I like this sort of like gothic, floating camera, beautiful production design trend that he's on lately. Like Crimson Peak kind of kicked that era off. And I think that's a really underrated film. And then Shape of Water was just a beautiful culmination of that, you know, cinematography style. And this film brings it back. And I know some people had some problems with the floating camera and the digital look in a noir setting, but as Guillermo said, noir is narrative. It's not just aesthetic, it's narrative. And noir means black, and that means dark, and Nightmare Alley is about as dark as it freaking gets for Del Toro, because this is a nasty piece of filmmaking, and I really loved it. It's a remake of the 1947 film of the same name, starring Tyrone Power in the lead role, and here we have Bradley Cooper taking the reins as Stanton Carlisle, and he's a mysterious sort of guy, so again, not going to try and go too much into plot, but he is just this sort of wanderer, and we know he's got a dark past, he's done something, he's running away from something, and he comes upon this carnival, and Willem Dafoe's character Clem takes him under his wing and gives him a job, and he finds that he has this talent for mentalism, so he starts, you know, build more popularity in the community and sets up a plan to run away with Molly, played by Rooney Mara, to try and go at it as a mentalist. And that's all I'll say about the plot, because this has some great moments and some great reveals, and it's a great character study. It's not a horror film, it very much is a noir, and, you know, it follows the conventions of that genre, but in the end it's just this really, really great character study about greed and trust and trauma and, you know, demons running away from your past. And I thought it was great. It's got this awesome revolving door of cast members, including people like Toni, Collette, Cate Blanchett, David Strathairn, Richard Jenkins, the aforementioned people like Rooney Mara, Mary Steenburgen, you know, the list goes on. Ron Perlman. This has a really, really stacked cast, and so you know, everyone has their great moments, and they're all great. But I just want to specifically shout out Cate Blanchett, because she is genuinely awesome in this as this sort of femme fatale, I guess you could say, type character, and she's almost too on the nose perfect casting for that kind of role. But I was really happy to see her get a SAG nomination, because she really is fantastic, and I love the first half, but the film really kicks into another gear when she comes into play in the second half. And the second half is really where it's at for me. Despite the fact that it's mostly just like cold interiors and stuff, it's just so gorgeous to look at the whole time, and so thrilling and so dark. Like, all my favorite things about this movie come in the second half, so it's not an easy one to talk about. But all I'll say is Bradley Cooper's performance guides you through all of it, and you buy everything that happens in this movie because of his performance. I've seen some people say he's subdued and understated, and I don't really agree. I think he's understated when he needs to be, but really he actually kind of goes for it when he needs to, and there are some big moments in the second half that you are only able to get invested in because of how good he is. And the ending of this film is just phenomenal. I think it's one of the very best endings of any film this year, and Bradley Cooper is astounding in it. Like, I think this is his career best performance, and I think it's a real shame that this film came out in, one, a really stacked year for lead actors, and two, just a film that no one really seems to care about. And look, I'm not saying you're all idiots, you don't understand. I mean, I'm kind of saying that, but I get it. I get why people aren't as enamored with this as Shape of Water. It's one that you really have to be invested in the style of to go along with it, because it doesn't have that emotional through line that The Shape of Water had. It's much more dark and it features characters who are much harder to like. I still found them very interesting, but it is one where you have to really be on board with the characters and the narrative to enjoy it, because it's quite slow. It's a real slow burn and it doesn't have a lot for you to root for. And not every movie needs that. But I totally get why this didn't do it for some people, and it could very easily end up being boring. And you do feel the length, you know? It's 2.5 hours, and it does feel 2.5 hours. And I'd be lying if I said I didn't think there was probably some stuff they could cut in that first half. Not that I didn't enjoy that stuff, but, you know, there's definitely some meat on the bones of this one, and you could argue that Guillermo's being a little indulgent after winning his Oscar, which, you know, rightly so. Wins an Oscar and then comes out and makes his first film that doesn't have any supernatural elements in it. I respect the balls on him, and I'm very excited to see what he does next, because I think Nightmare Alley is one of the most underrated films of the year, and I think it's a brilliant, darkly fun time that I urge you to go and see it in a theater, because it is an audio-visual feast. And if nothing else, I think this deserves craft Oscar nominations across the board, because the cinematography, the score from Nathan Johnson, who did Knives Out, which was another great score. I don't know how no one's talking about the score for this film. It is chef's kiss sort of stuff. The cinematography from Dan Laustsen, it's very similar style to Shape of Water. Just you feel like you are the camera, and I really, really love that. So Nightmare Alley. I'm going to give Nightmare Alley a 9 out of 10. May or may not be popping up on my best list. We will see. But I just wanted to get this review out there to talk about it and recommend it, because I think it's a really great film that I think people will love. I've talked to some people who aren't necessarily into film that saw this and really liked this. So if any of it sounds interesting to you, I definitely recommend checking it out, because it's it's a great time. That is it for my review of Nightmare Alley, a really great addition to the filmography of one of cinema's masters, and it doesn't shy away from his usual trend of portraying man as monster. And that's all we get in this one, because there are no monsters in it, just monstrous men. Thank you very much for watching.